Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome to the new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. This time it's just me, Brian, here, your host of this episode, and we are going to explore a little bit how to cultivate balance and how to cultivate more relaxation for our lives in general, but as well for these times that we're living through. So one of the first things that I wanted to introduce into this conversation is, what do we think relaxation is? How do we experience it? Have you ever experienced it in your life? Most of us live with stress. Every single day we are stressed, and most of us don't even know how stressed we are, partly because that's our normal. Once something becomes normal, we don't notice it as more. So I see a lot of people that walk around with so much stress, but they are completely oblivious to that. And sometimes when I work with them, then after a little bit of time, they realize, oh my God, how much stress I'm going on with. Especially for a lot of us that carry that stress on the shoulders and the neck area, perhaps in the lower back. There's so much stress that we are carrying. And part of it also has to do with the fact that we live very busy lives. So why are we living such a busy life? Is it better perhaps to live a simpler life, doing things, but taking care of ourselves first? So when we grow up, most of us, we grow up, at least in the Western civilization, we grow up within the system that is based on doing, learning, repeating, going through grades, and it's based on the learning content and then saying that content and moving on like that. Most of us haven't learned the tools to deal with our life, to deal with our feelings, with our emotions, with the things that happen in life, with our family, our relationships, our friends. So when we are a little bit older, the ones that we are able and open to see things differently, to live a little bit more consciously, to develop awareness, then we need to unlearn a lot of things, because that is what we've been conditioned. And conditioning is huge, and we talked about it on some of the previous episodes of the podcast. Conditioning is huge, and there's nothing wrong with noticing that we have been conditioned, and whatever is there and whatever was there was good for that time, and it helped us being where we are today. So when we're exploring the world of relaxation and finding balance, that partly is different for everyone. We all do things differently, we all respond to things differently, and we all have different types of energies. So understanding that not everyone is going to respond the same way is a very valid point. What is relaxation? For a lot of us, relaxation is, at least in the image of relaxation, is the ideal of being at the beach, laying down, drinking a very cold lemonade or beer or whatever it is that you want to drink, sunny day, perhaps having a book to read, laying down. That is just an image of relaxation, right? And there's so many different ways that we feel like we relax. But what I learned is that relaxation actually is achieved when our entire body and its energy is flowing. So we have energy moving inside, and we have energy that is moving outside. And the way that we experience that energy is through our feelings, our sensations, our emotions. When we don't allow that flow to happen, we start creating blockages in our system. And for the moment, or at least for this episode, we are not going to go into too much the blockages, but the important thing is that the flow is not always there. And when there's no flow, we get that tightness, we get that stress, which means we are not relaxed. When everything is flowing, we are relaxed. So if you dance or if you do sports or if you go for a run or for a swim, you can notice that either after or sometimes during all of that movement, you find yourself in a state of relaxation. Even if it's challenging for a moment if you're running or doing exercise. But what happens afterwards is that the energy is actually flowing. So that means that we start to get a little bit more into that relaxed state. For me, doing yoga is a way of actually allowing the energy in the body to move. And if I find that there's a blockage, I try to relax that and try to open that up. So then the energy is able to flow everywhere. And when that energy is flowing, I can find relaxation. So that relaxation that I found is a very different idea than what I had before. That was the laying down on the beach or laying down on the couch watching TV. Both ways I find relaxation, but the relaxation that I find after moving and consciously moving and allowing that energy to flow is way, way deeper than the surface level relaxation of just laying down. So I invite you to experiment what happens when you move. If you practice yoga, pay more attention if you haven't yet. What happens after you move? Taking the time to actually notice that. If you go for runs or if you play sports, take the time to actually notice. Because that is a way of us engaging more and more with relaxation. And we need that. We need to find those moments of balance in our life. Because if everything is going fast, if everything that we have to do every single day needs to happen now, then we cannot find the time to slow down and to assess what we are doing and to act accordingly. We find that most of the time we are reacting to life and we are going on the autopilot. So finding those spaces, those times that allow you to be, just for a moment to be, allowing yourself the time to get that balance And again, this doesn't mean that we need to stop doing whatever we are doing in terms of work, in terms of relationships. It's just getting to the point of finding that balance. So a lot of us, we do a lot of giving, and people that are of service, people that do a lot of giving, a lot of times they find that they start getting out of balance. And that is because there's too much of giving and not enough receiving. And that happens partly because sometimes we are not open to receiving, and sometimes because literally there's no one giving back. When we give too much, when we are not taking care of ourselves, we get to that place of unbalance. So making sure that we're always taking care of ourselves, that doesn't mean stop giving, but making sure that there's a balance of that giving and that receiving. If we want to find balance in terms of our family and our work or our study, how can you do that? What are the times on the week, where are the areas that you can integrate things? Stopping that separation. How can you work and be with your family? How can you allow that to happen? Especially for moments like this where a lot of people are working from home and they have kids. How can you use the time wisely to do some things together and to do some things separately? To be able to continue doing your work and to get that balance of finding a good flow to be productive and finding a good flow to be with your family. So finding balance is not easy because we lose track of what we are doing. Our awareness is not always there. So we need to be really aware all of the time. We need to be really present to do that, to be balanced. It's not easy because we, most of the time, or most people, are not taught how to do that. So I find that using my body, just as I mentioned before, going for a run, dancing, yoga, those practices are really good because I'm using my body, and my body helps me to stay grounded. When I'm too much in my mind, I start getting lost in there because there's so much in there. I can go on for hours and hours and hours. But what I have found is that the more aware that I am of my body, the more aware that I am of my breath, I can actually balance the thoughts. Not having to stop the thoughts. I can balance because I am both in my mind and in my body. Finding that sweet spot that allows us to be doing both things, being present and thinking, being in our bodies and in our minds. There doesn't need to be a separation. It's just about how is your awareness. How are you allowing that energy to move? Are you staying present or not? So making sure that as we explore our life, that we can actually go and make notes of where do we believe that we are balanced and where do we believe that we are not. When are we relaxed and when are we not? Because the first thing is to notice. Noticing and acknowledging where we are. If I acknowledge where I am, then I can do something about it if I want to, if I choose to. If I don't choose to, then that's perfectly okay. I don't need to change everything. But making sure that we do all the time what we want to do. So if I acknowledge my circumstances, then I can create that space to see. And when I do that, I can actually see like, okay, here I am rushing. I am not aware at all. I am not doing the best. So what can I change there? How can I do better? How can I do differently? When we explore that, then we can notice that there's more possibilities for our life. So I invite you to go through your days and your weeks, go back in your mind or with a piece of paper and write down what are the things that bring you to a place of imbalance. What are the things that bring you stress? Where, in which circumstances and situations do you notice that you get stress? What are the things that trigger it? So finding those spaces and those times is the first step. The second step is realizing that you have the power to change. You have the power to do things differently. Then starting to actually do that. If we actually don't take action, and this is why for me and for us, this is why conscious action exists, we need to take action with what we have learned. Because if we don't put it into practice, if we don't actually take action, nothing will change. So there's an effort that needs to happen. But it doesn't need to be a very hard process. It can be very, very, very slow, very gentle, and little by little making the changes. Sometimes things that we think that will be super hard are not that hard. So finding what are the areas that you want to change and finding what are the areas that you want to keep. Again, not everything needs to change. So how do we explore that? Sometimes with meditation, sometimes just we know it. Sometimes we know that, okay, I really need to change this. This is not working anymore, I really need to change this. But then noticing what are the ramifications of us changing as well. So when we do things differently, that means that we are no longer doing whatever we were doing before. And this is something that is big, especially for moments of transition. When we are in a space of transition, there's more opportunities. When we have a lot going on, there's less space for those opportunities because everything in a sense is taken. All of my time, all of my energy is already placed somewhere, whether that is relationships, work, study, whatever it is. Most of us have our weeks full, completely booked. So finding where are the areas that we can actually create some space. And if you, during this time, for whatever reason, were unable to continue working, were unable to remain employed, don't have an income, yes, it's a very challenging situation. I know that situation. But also, this is a time for asking ourselves, what do we want to do with it? Now we are not tied to anything. Yes, we need to find something, but what is it that I want to do? When I actually find those places, I can notice a little bit more flow. And sometimes it's okay to be stuck. Things don't have to be perfect, at least on what we think perfect is. Because underneath it all, we are actually balanced. We're actually perfect. We just don't know it because we have a different lens of what that looks like. So, finding how to get balance into your life, it's a journey. It takes time. It's not super easy. We need to, as I mentioned before, we need to unlearn so much of what we have been doing for many years, 10, 20, 40, 50 years, 60 years, it doesn't matter how long. But we need to unlearn that, all of that conditioning. One of the biggest tools that I use for myself is my breath. This is something that we all can do. If you're alive, you're breathing. It doesn't matter if you're breathing through your nose, through your mouth, if it's shallow, if it's deep, you're breathing. So, can you develop more awareness of your breath to get to that place of balance? I found that when I was able to start controlling my breath, I was controlling my energy, I was controlling my heart rate, I was controlling my mind. I was bringing balance into my life just by bringing balance to my breath. So, use your breath wisely. That can be done any single moment. Of course, if you set aside a few minutes every single day to pay attention to it without any disruptions or distractions, that would be better, but it can be done at any point. And one of the suggestions that I always tell people is take a few deep breaths. That is the start. Just allow that sigh, that release to happen. Like this, like just allowing a few of those, a few deep sighs, deep exhales, to get to that place of, okay, now let's start. I'm breathing and trying to find balance and a rhythm. And that can be done with your inhale and your exhale, or it can be done with the 4 parts of the breathing, the inhale, the holding, the exhale, and the space before the inhale. And what I suggest is, as you're listening to this, count to 3 or to 4 for each part. Just breathe in for 1, 2, 3, hold for 1, 2, 3, exhale for 1, 2, 3, hold for 1, 2, 3, inhale 1, 2, 3, and continue 1, 2, 3. Keep on breathing and counting to 3. If it's comfortable, count to 4. If it's comfortable, count to 5. The biggest thing is finding that balance and keeping that balance and that flow, that count for a few minutes at least. And notice as you pay attention to the breath and you get that breath balanced, how you start to bring more balance and how you start being a little bit more present. Notice what is your experience. Perhaps that is not your experience at the first time that you do it. Perhaps it is. There is no perfect way that works for everyone, and not everyone is going to resonate with everything. So find what is your way. Find how can you make sure that you bring balance into your life. And I would love to hear in the comments, to hear just sending us a message. What are the ways that you find that work for you to find balance in your life? To find that relaxation in your everyday life? Because one of the things that I find that was true for me was when I started practicing yoga, when I started practicing meditation, I was super stressed. And I found those moments to be really helpful. So I was really stressed, and then I practiced meditation or yoga, and I was feeling a little bit of relax. And then again I got into the stress, and then I would practice and find a little bit of relaxation again. But I was going from stress all day long to a short practice of relaxation. Stress, relaxation, stress, relaxation. And I realized that that's not the way that I wanted to live. I wanted to learn how can I maintain that. Instead of getting stressed, can I live without stress? Can I live in that state of relaxation? In that state of flow, finding balance. And for me, it has been true that I can live like that. I am living like that. So I encourage all of us to see that we can live without stress. We can live relaxed and balanced. We can live every single day with that state. Not getting into that stress and tight spaces. When we get to that, seeing how our everyday life becomes much lighter. There's so much more space for love and appreciation and gratitude for ourselves, for the people in our life, for what we have. Because we have so much. But when we are not balanced, when we are not relaxed, we don't notice that. We don't notice that we are breathing, and every single moment in our life, we have this air, this oxygen that we are breathing, and that is always there. That we have the heart beating for us every single moment of every single day. And we take that for granted. So bringing that awareness into our experience, there's more space for us to notice even more things like that. Those small things that we take for granted that are there every single moment. So I invite you to experience and experiment every single moment that you remember, finding balance, breathing, moving, meditating, whatever it looks like, becoming more and more aware and more conscious of your being, of your energy, of your state, and how can you maintain that. Because if we live in a space, in society, where everyone is relaxed and at ease, how different could the world look like? I remember that one day I saw that someone asked the Dalai Lama, how do we achieve peace in the world? And his answer, and I'm paraphrasing here, was that if every 8-year-old in the world would learn how to meditate, by the next generation we will have peace. And what I took from that is that when we find balance, when we find that peace and that relaxation, then we're going to act and behave like that with everyone. And when everyone is in that same state, we won't have as many challenges and as many discussions and wars as what we've been having for the last, I don't know how many 100 years. So it's really important that we take responsibility for our world, our inner peace, finding relaxation, finding balance, and seeing how our lives start to change once we embark in that process. So once again, as we get to the end of this episode, I encourage you to give this a go, to practice. If you have already been practicing something, I would love to know what it is that you've been practicing. And if this is something new for you, let me know how it goes. Give it a go and send us a message to Conscious Action NZ. Leave a comment on the episode or on our Facebook or Instagram page and let us know how you're going with it. And we'll see you at the next episode.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.